how we would do. Took us so much time to actually figure out this all this works, and here we are, live and alive and present in existence with the reality. I don't know. Uh, I don't know why this took why this all took so much time, but we finally made it. And it's still there are still issues with OBS and thing, and I don't know how to get into this, but we'll get into it bit by bit, uh, step by step, as always. So basically, I don't know what we are trying to do here, but what I am trying to do is I thought an idea, or I've always had this thing that okay, I'm gonna put something out on, and there's the sense of in some sense like you can think of it like the humans were born in this universe, right? They are born with a purpose, let's say, or maybe with an intent. You can throw the logic out as well out of the window. But if you really see that, where are we coming from, right? What the human chain is basically coming from. We are coming from nobody, right? We are started from, I don't know, single cellular organisms, and here we are, right? How did that happen? We have no idea about it. Like, we really do not have an idea, good idea about it. But there's something about creation, right? There's something about this ability to serve people, or this this act. I was hearing, I think, Peterson talking the other day. He was talking about consciousness. I was so much into it, and I thought, okay, what's Peterson's take on it? I thought, and I saw he said something like if you see the Genesis laid out a very beautiful, it says that the word was said and the world was made, right? It goes something like that. I might fuck it up here, but still, okay. You get it, right? The word was there. The word was this force which made all the creation in the world and which made it all possible, right? And in some sense, yep. And you might think, why the word, right? Why not just actions? Or, it's not even like actions are not, doesn't fit into this category, but, word was. Okay. Okay. So the issue or the sense was like that word was given so that consciousness could come into picture, right? And word, why it's word? Because it's something that can be socially constrained, and it could be scrutinized by the people around you, right? So there is an act of judgment, or let's say analysis, or let's say a perspective from other people, so that it should fit into the context, right? And there is a very good ethical reasons to go into that, but there are also good reasons to write why we humans, right? We exist because we act, or we exist in a fabric of space where we share things with people, right? Our ability to share the space and time, our ability to share action, to share food, to share space, or to share love, right? This sharing of action, the sharing of value is what makes us possible that we are here, and we are probably, at the top of the food chain. How lame does it sound? I don't know, but you get the point, right? This this act of sharing, this act of giving a value, this act of saying that I heard this beautiful. I saw this maybe I don't know 3 years or 4 years back in my college. This beautiful quote by Peterson himself. He said something like, I will give you my hand. I will give you my hand in the trust that the best of you will come out of it. The best of you will shake that hand, right? So there is that process, there is that faith of leap. There's this leap of faith that every person takes, right? When they put themselves out. And this is how thing we came up to this, you know, we made it in some sense. We are alive because of that, this sharing, this act of giving, right? People say like let go. What are you letting go, right? this this service, this servitude, this notion that sharing, or putting yourself out, or being naked or being vulnerable will not only provide good for people, but also make you sustainable and make you sophisticated enough as an individual, as a living entity, so that you can have the best adventure of your life. And why not have the best adventure of your life if that's the only adventure to take, right? Like your life is so miserable and so terrific and so how do we say it, so full of pain. Like if you see now, the fundamental reality of life when you look outward is pain, right? uh Jiddu Krishnamurti, I was reading, or I was reading him, saw something on Instagram or something. He said something like that, like, or maybe it was not him, maybe Aurelius or something was like that. The proposition here is, if you look outward, if you seek the pleasures of the world or the desires, right? All you will feel is in some sense is pain, right? This fundamental understanding, right? Consciousness give you that give you that uh, ability to feel the pain, right? And it's really painful if you see how pain can inflict on people and how people have inflicted pain and how the tragedies have come up on human life, right? So if we are not, we are done with that. Buddha came and said life is suffering. Fair enough, man. Life is one hell of a fucking suffering, right? And, you know, to come out of that suffering, that's the question that everyone is asking, maybe philosophers and psychologists and people have, and poets and artists and dramatists have battled this question for, I don't know, years and years and years. And there's something that comes out of this, right? That antidote, let's say, to that all this chaos and all this suffering and all this pain is found in an act of sharing, in an act of exchanging value, in an act of giving love, right? In an act of giving, you can say, Rumi would say, to give, to love is to give, right? And beautifully depiction here of love, basically, that it's not a process that, you do not demand love, right? You it fills you with so much, right? When you're total love, it it fills you with so much that all you want is to share with it, right? All you want is share with that. And that feeling that, you know and that what makes you alive in that present, in that moment, right? Because you're nothing but an action. The doer becomes the doing, basically, right? That's what you want, right? You are here for some reason, right? I don't know what the fucking reason, but I like to believe that we are here for a reason. There's a destiny, and there's something that binds us together. That's something that clings the human consciousness. Not even human, but whatever you like to call it. But there's something beautiful about it, and we should, savor it. We should try to, live with it, all its dignity, with all its integrity, with all its beauty, right? And try to share it and, you know, help people, right? There's something so wonderful about it. And I don't know, I can go about this all in all. I don't really want to go into it. But you get the point, right? So my basic proposition, which why I started this tangent, because maybe I thought maybe I have some value. I don't know what's the measure of that value. So maybe I have some value, and maybe I can give that value. Maybe I can share that value so that I can become more solidified and so more complete, let's say, by sharing that value. And maybe I can dissolve the values that I have sticked to me, right, which are not helping me, right? There's this sense of, you can say, like when you share things, in some sense you're putting your vulnerable parts out, right? And that's the beauty of it, like, because if you share someone, if you saw your if you put yourself totally naked in front of others, the parts of you that are not alive, that doesn't make you, like, go, in some sense you have to, and it's not a sense of like I have to let go because of a people judgment or a accountability purpose, but you feel that in some sense, like you know if it's like caught lying to your parents, right? You feel that guilt and you feel that emotion. Okay, I should not have done that. I could have done better, right? So I think that the fundamental premise, or let's say a fundamental point that I'm trying to make. That's why I want to put myself out. That's why I want to share everything that I have and maybe share all the bad things that I have so that I can could get rid of them, and maybe all there is nothing but weed. The shaft is gone, right? This is what my whole purpose, you can say. It's not like really a driven thing, but it's like there is something that is happening to me as well. Like I'm in my 23 right now, and I'm so fulfilled with life. It feels like, when I go outside and just meet people and talk to them and say what I really want to say and really I believe saying. There is so much, it fills me with total emotion and total love and total contentment that you feel, right, when you are actually living a life. And I thought, okay, I really want to live this life. I really want this feeling, right? This feeling of being alive. Maybe that's what I'm trying to do here, right? I'm just sitting in front of the camera, like who the hell does that, right? Putting a light on here and have a mic here and putting all this setup. Who the fuck does that? But that life, that's maybe what's making me going, all this tragedy and the malevolence of this life. And yeah, I'm counting on that. I'm counting on that. And even, I don't know, this might go bad, this might go really bad. I have no idea about it, how it will go, and maybe I could go crazy because I'm speaking my mind all the time here. But we will see how it goes, right? There's a faith in it. There's an element of trust in it, right? There is an element of fear also in it. You know, if you cannot look at the fear, right? If you cannot face your fear, you will fear from that fear for a very long time. Reading Krishnamurti was beautifully posted that, and you have to face that fear. In some sense, like you have to become that fear. Because if you separate from that fear, right? Sorry for my burpings. There is this duality that you are creating when you are separating from that fear. And that duality is the source of all your tragedy, or all the pain that you are facing, all the suffering that you are facing. Right? That duality is the basically what's at the bottom of this whole conflict, right? I don't know how I should throw spirituality or the duality, mind and body, soul into it, but it was a pretty good idea. I just heard it randomly, and I was like, wow, what a beautiful thing to say. It's really hard. It's really hard to read Jiddu Krishnamurti and to actually get it, because it's not right. He will say something really beautiful, at the same time he will say something very strange, right? You know that you are connecting to it, but at the same time you're also, it's like you can see, you can touch yourself, but you cannot still touch yourself. But this this feeling that I can't touch it, right? There's something so beautiful that guy is speaking, right? There is fundamental value to it. Maybe I could go and attain it. Maybe I could go and reach out, right? That part is maybe, you know that part I really like to you know live by, right? That maybe I will get what uh, he's speaking, right? What he's trying to say to people, right? To look them, right? To become what you're observing, what you're facing, right? So that's that part, the fear part. Nietzsche will say something like on this, like, if you gaze into the abyss will gaze into you as well. I think that's a pretty good, solid statement if you ask me, right? And the fact goes, the story or the hypothesis goes something like that. People run away from that. People run away from that. There's something, and fair enough, man. It's fair, right? All this emotion, this anxiety, and this feeling of inner turmoil and confusion and pain and everything that's attached to it, right? People have this, they cannot go and confront it. They cannot speak the truth to their parent. They cannot, say the thing that they really want to say to the person they love, but they haven't said a single thing to that guy, to that person. Or maybe something very small, right? Maybe to a friend or maybe to a siblings, right? People fear that. That fear is like, yeah, in some sense represented in the everyday actions, right? And you know, it's very shameful in some sense, or very sad to live with that fear every day, right? You can say, oh, what men has to fear, but I think everyone fears, right? Everyone fears. There's something so tragedy and something so fundamental about fear that it lives within us, right? You cannot hide away from it. You have to face it, right? In some sense, like Peterson, I would claim Peterson here again. He said something really beautiful. He said, like, you know, so he was telling me this. He was telling the story. He was saying something like, the story goes like that. He has this patient, right? The patient had a fear of elevators, right? She thought that if when the elevator opens, it's like opening of a mouth, right, and into a tomb, let's say, or into a belly of a devil, let's say, right? So, people have that sort of fears. They have all sorts of fear. We don't even know, right? We don't even know what fears are there in people's life. But, she has that fear. Peterson idea was how to confront that fear is, just let's say the fear is like 10 foot away, right? And you are behind a wall. And Peterson would say, okay, look at the fear. Even like just within by your wall, by standing just by side your wall. So the lady would go and just look at the elevator, right? You know, Peterson would say, okay, come next day, right? Next day, she might, you know, actually come out of the wall and actually see 10 from 10 feet, right? That elevator. Peterson would say, okay, good. Obviously, the person who is doing this activity of facing the fear has to do it voluntarily, but hold this process basically after next day you are 9 feet, after next day you're 2 feet closer. So like this whole process, and it maybe 20th day, maybe 30th day, it might take weeks as well, depends on how big the fear is. You will be there, right? You will be there at the edge. You'll be there when the door opens, right? When you can see the opening of the tomb, let's say, right? And then there you can see your fear right at the face. You couldn't even see when it started, right? From 10 foot distance. But here you are, right? With the face of your fear. And that lady actually get over her fear of elevator, right? And there's some context that I would like to throw that. She actually decided, okay, I'm gonna face my fear. I'm actually voluntarily gonna do it. I'm gonna go in front of the fear that I really fear, and actually confront it and face it and maybe fight it. And she actually did it, right? And I have seen people in my life, right? Pretty close people in my life who has to go through this whole process of doing everyday normal thing that they used to do very easily. They never thought that it will fear them. It will make them fearful, right? And it will make that feeling of fear, right? I have seen people. This is the only advice I gave them, and actually it worked. So it was really beautiful when I knew, okay, I could help them in some sense, but they actually thanked me a lot. The story goes go all the way. So, what the basic proposition here is that face your fear, right? Voluntarily facing your fear is what it's like, and it's not like the fear will not be there. The fear will always be there, right? It's like you get braver. It's like you get better. It's like you get stronger. It's like you develop that ability to face that fear. It's not like the fear is not. Fear is there, definitely, but you get conditioned, let's say, to that fear. This braveness, that's is what makes you go and confront your challenges and the problems of your life, right? And this is maybe how you deal with your problems, right? Maybe you know one of the things that you deal with your problem. There are many things. There are many things in my life that I also face like this, right? There are many situations where I thought, okay, what should I do? This is, uh, eh, Why defocuses? I never get it. Ah, yeah, we are back again. Okay, so I was talking about fear. So, like, it's really pretty cool to understand how fear works, right? We have that feel of fear every day in our life, and we can confront it. We can confront the challenges of our life by facing them, by actually doing them voluntarily. People have that with their parents. They are so stuck with them, they cannot even talk to them. They have this feeling of their parents will beat them in some real sense, right? And they will be fucking 30 or 40 in their life and being adult and with their own kids, and they still have this fear talking to their parents. It's like they are putting them on a pedestal in some sense, right? They are not saying that they are also human, right? Your parents are basically also human, right? And you might think, oh, they are God or something, but they are simple men and women, right? Doing their life and trying to go through their life in this pain, this burden, right? Including you. So, do not have that. Just go talk to your parents, just go talk to your people that you love, what you really think about life, and whatever you think, okay, this could go wrong. But you should do it, right? That's the only way you will find, you will get over it. There are a lot of things that I also fear, right? It's not like I do not have my own issues, right? But I have tried to solve them, you know, voluntary by being conscious at stage, by planning it. It's not, it doesn't, the thing with that, why I'm putting so much insistence on being voluntary is because it's not like you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision, okay, I cannot do that. It's not like, okay, it happened, right? Because then it might put you in a backward stage, right? I Peterson was saying something, right? That the judges will, the accused, or let's say the victims, will be served a community service, something or something like that, and they will be sent to Peterson for rehabilitation, you can say. So the prisoners or the accused or the victims or the accused will come to Peterson and try to have that conversation. But of course, the conversation doesn't go well because they are not voluntarily coming to have that conversation, right? They have been sent by the jury or the judge, right? So that never worked, and it's pretty fucking obvious why it never worked, because the person who was into that exercise doesn't want to participate. There is some sense of consent that you really need, right? The person has to make that decision that they really want to get their life together. They really want to face the problems that they are dealing with in their everyday process, right? And that's really something about this voluntary challenge that I'm trying to lay out, right? I don't know. I This whole fear thing came up. But this whole fear, right? We have this fear in our everyday life. People have this fear of living their life all the time. They go out in public and they say things, right, that they don't really want to say, because it's fear that's making them say these things, right? They are not being truthful in some sense to what they're trying to say. Yeah, they will see a beautiful woman walking down the street, and you know they might know her or him, it could be anyone from their class, but they are so fearful of going and talking to that person because they have this fear, this judgment that, what if I say something else? What if I say something else? What if I place my foot here, right? Will I fall? This whole fear is what making them going crazy. And it happens all the fucking time. It happens with my friends all the time. It happened with me. Now I've started to actually get over this fear. The process is simple, man. The process, I think, is simple in some sense. You have to be just truthful to yourself, right? You have to be just truthful to what you believe in, right? Because what you are actually, in some sense, fearful now is saying something that you really don't mean, right? And then you have to defend that thing, right? That's a bad thing. Like, you are in competition with that person, and you're trying to, cherry picking the conversation, trying to impress that person. For what reason? Why? For what reason? We have no reason. We don't know what reasons are there. It could be any reason. Maybe they are your crush, or maybe you want to impress them. Maybe you want to think, yeah, I'm so cool. Maybe you want to show that. It's all there. It's all bullshit, right? Anyway, you go there, you have this conversation with them, and you think, okay, I'm gonna say something that makes me look cool in front of them. Then you say it, but you don't really believe it. You don't find it coming from your heart. You find in this whole loop of, basically defending your first assumption or first chain of thought that wasn't yours. And now you're stuck. And now you're stuck. And the conversation goes all bizarre, and you are like thinking, what the fuck was the interaction? Because you were not never yourself. You thought, okay, I will act like this manner, I will walk like that, I will have the drink, I will think about every step that I will take, because that's what you're thinking, right? When you're actually talking to people now, and it's a very smooth conversation. You know the person, right? It's you're not really thinking, to be honest, right? It's just coming out. Like me, right? I'm not really thinking. It's just coming out of my mouth. I'm saying what I say. I know I could say a really bad thing, right? That I'm not really solid. Maybe I would not say that, right? I might slip here and there, and maybe I have to be careful with my saying. But there are things that I'm saying which I have said thousands of times, which I totally believe in, which I know that are to be true, right? And I'm not saying that they are true, but in some sense, I'm willing to put them and be tested on them, right? So this thing happens with people a lot. They go there, they say something really crazy that they don't really believe. They might have not even said it. They might have never tried it saying. And I'm not against trying and all, but saying a very strange fact that they actually hate, right? They actually disagree, and then they will say something like, and then they have to carry that fakeness within them, throughout that whole interaction, or maybe with that whole person in their whole life, and now the whole relation sucked, right? And in some sense, the other person might catch it, probably they will, right? Anyway, uh, yeah, they will catch them. They will catch them. That's the beauty. That's the test of time, right? You cannot fake something for too long. It's gonna catch you up. It's gonna catch you up. You have to, be real. You have to be as real as you can. That's the fundamental motive of life, right? If you are being real at every situation, man, you will, in some sense, avoid the avoid the wells. I don't know how to put it. Avoid the loopholes, or avoid the holes that might put you really down, right? Because you're watching every step of yours. I had my friend, so he has been having trouble talking to people for God reason. I don't know. I cannot get into those reasons. There are thousands of reasons, but in some sense, what's happening now when he's talking to a woman, or maybe having an interaction with women, he's washing himself a lot. And I noticed that. I noticed that. I was like, hey man, what are you trying to do here? That's not really the thing. Right? You're not being alive in that conversation, on that interaction, right? You're thinking, okay, should I do that? Should I do that? And men have this sort of projection that they built up women, right? Fair enough, and sexual selection does come into this picture. But you know, there's a pretty call that you're paying, right, by being conscious of that. Like, I'm not saying do not analyze the conversation, do not analyze the interaction. I also do it. I do it every time, right? But when I'm in that zone, I try to be as present as I could be, say what I really believe, say, like, I don't really have to think what I'm saying, right? I just say it, I see the reactions. Maybe I land, maybe I try to do a joke, maybe it lands, maybe it doesn't. Who fucking cares? The conversation, my basic, uh, let's say the measurability from an interaction is, am I having fun? That's the fundamental thing. Am I enjoying or not? When my friend was having this conversation, and I don't know, maybe this could be a one of a thing. Maybe I'm bad at reading, and I try to talk to him in that manner. But this pattern, I could talk about this pattern, that people actually being very conscious when they are talking to women or person that they really think, okay, this could be a judge, right? This could be a person of value. Then they're really being conscious about every step they are taking in that conversation, and and this kills the flow of the conversation, right? You're not having that dance that you want to have, that you want to have that rhythm with that person, right? And Of course, I'm not against like thinking in that conversation. Think actually. But if you're thinking about every single word that you are saying, really, right? You're not in fucking parliament or something, right? We are thinking about everything that you are saying. So, there's this consciousness that comes into it. And that's the thing, man. When you are acting now, when you're acting, don't be conscious, right? Let your consciousness take over. Let your let your whole presence take over you and, create or maybe act what you really want to. When you play football, when Messi is playing football, okay, he might think about like, what should I do? What should I do? But that thing is also so built in, right? I was reading about this procedural memory, I think. I thought that Messi's actions are so reflexive in some sense, right? Reflexive actions are those that, let's say I touch, maybe, you can say that maybe this is a hot pan light. If I touch it, right, without me being conscious that it's hot, I will have a reflexive action, right? So I thought that I was studying that. I think I was studying memory, I guess. Yeah, I was studying memory, right? And there was this element that reflect about reflexive about this differentiation between reflexive action and everything. So I thought, okay, when Messi's at the pitch, when he's actually playing, in some sense he has learned that skill so much. He has practiced that ability, that understanding, the depthness that's required to play a football like him. It's so built in that every action that he's doing in some sense is reflexive, right? Like every action, like it's not like he's thinking, okay, I should do this, I should do this. It's like just happening. Like even if he's watching the football field, like even if he's like uh seeing the midfield, even if seeing the press, even if he's saying right, the overlap run and everything that goes within all this thing. It's so reflexive, it's so built in, right? That he doesn't really need the conscious element to take, right? It's just happening. The action is just happening. He's in the flow state, right? That Mihaly would say. I read about this. I don't know, 3 4 days ago. This flow state, right? People, this modern lingo of, what's really a flow state, right? Sports psychologists, I think, came up with this term, and Mihaly is basically given the credit for this flow state. I think he named it, right? Hungarian American psychologist. His proposal was simple that flow state is nothing, right? Is in some sense you are being control of the thing that you are doing, but in some sense you are also losing that control, right? There's this paradox of control that I read, and I was like, oh, that's fucking pretty cool. That you are letting that, like, when athletes do their athletic shits, right? So let's say an athlete comes and do a high jump race, and right, and he or she scored, 9.8, 9.6, 9.5 by the judges, right? The next athletes come and now she has all the pressure. He has all the pressure. She thinks, how I'm gonna do that shit? How I'm gonna do that shit? Like, I'm gonna, you know, overcome that thing. Because the previous guy, she did it. She killed it. She won it, basically. And the next guy comes in, and you are in some sense the audience and the collective in some sense in an anticipation that they could see the greatness, right? They could see the greatness in their front of their eyes, and there this tenseness which is taking place before that run up, right? And that runner, that athlete, that high jump athlete comes in putting all their effort, right? That they have put it, but the pressure is so much that they actually go a step above that. They actually absorb that pressure and actually come out of this whole thing, and they jumped, right? And they did a perfect landing. They got the perfect score, right? I'm not saying the right sport here, high jump, but some sport where judgment is also required. And the judges go, and the whole crowd go crazy, right? Because they have put themselves to that limit, that edge that we talk about. So this is how the flow state comes in, right? And Messi was playing the World Cup, you could have seen that he was in that flow state. You could have seen that there is something right that's going there, like he's like possessed in some sense by demons or something. And that's the beauty, right? You see it with pianists or maybe musicians, or you see it with sports athletes all the time. You see it with a good professor, or it could be in any way, right? It could be in a conversation. You could see that flow. You could feel we also feel that flow in some sense, right? Where we feel that we are at the right time at the right space, right? Doing what we are supposed to do, and that's what actually you know keeps us going, right? We are looking to have that flow in our everyday life, in our everyday presence. In some sense, like consciousness has to be this flow of stream, right? Flow of the stream of thought, or the stream of living, right? Where everything is flowing properly, right? My friend, he would say something like baho, like flow, like even like with this guy, karate guy, very famous guy, Jackie Chan. I think Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee would say that be like water, and maybe that's what he's trying to say, right? Be this flow, right? Adapt to the circumstances and try to live those circumstances and put yourself in places where you can, fully fledged your becoming or your existence or your presence, right? And there is something beautiful about it, right? When you feel that you are at the right place at the right time, there's something that, it's not like total control. It's like I talked to you about this paradox of control. It's not like you are being in control all the time. It's like you have that control of your action, but the the situation that you have put in some sense also challenging it optimal, right? Soviet psychologists would say something like it's like proximal development zone, right? Where I think you talked about that infant or children, like the children, if you take any child, right, you know, try to teach them very difficult word that they never heard, or that they are never familiar with, they will not learn it. They will not learn. They are not interested in that shit, right? They would need something out of their comfort zone, a bit something that they can step, right? Let's just step into this chaos, right? So they have some form of order with their other step, right? In some sense, this like step into this chaos at the same time order, right? This both two step, both these feeds, right? That's what we want, right? This flow state that we talked about, that modern thing or self talks a lot about this shit, and that's pretty cool. I think Taoism came up with this thing, right? If you see that symbol, right? That symbol of two snakes and a bit of white, like a bit of black and white. That is what it's like depicting there, right? You might see it in any phases of your life. There will be phases in your life where you could see that transformation of you happening, right? When you are actually on that edge of that stage, right? It's like it happens, right? And in some sense, the observer loses its identity when it's happening, right? I was doing this yoga yesterday, Kundalini yoga. I tried it for the first time. I saw Rogan talked about it. Peterson came and he was also saying that he was doing this Kundalini yoga with his wife, and the process goes something like that. You have to feel your pain basically, right? That your body has so much, points where you can feel the pain. Like right now, I can do it. Like just say, okay, take my hand, and I could, you know, twist my hand, maybe see where it's like, you know, not right, where it's not like fluid in some sense. Like I could see that pressure. It could be like here as well, right? So I was doing all this, right? Maybe checking my whole neck, right? And I did all this. Of course, I did not search on the web about anything. I just started doing it. I know that the simple process was like feel the pain, right? So I started with my hands, basically shoulders. I did a lot. I actually felt a lot of relief after doing this. And then and actually what happened, Rogan talked about this, that there are friends of him who actually achieved a psychedelic stage doing Kundalini yoga. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Rogan never did it. I don't know why he never did it, but I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I might get into this. I was starting doing this, and here I'm doing the Kundalini yoga, and I'm trying to play with my neck, see where it hurts, right? And there was this time now where I reached that I could actually stretch this part of my neck, right? And I could really stretch it really for a good time. What happened? What happened now? When I stretched it for a too long, I stretched it good now. It clicked. It clicked for real. And I could see that, stream of, you can say, consciousness lifting up, right? It's like it happens when you take a psychedelic drug or something. You take it, and then you realize, okay, now you're going to some state, right? You're going to another state, and through that state now, that I really I called it that tipping point, you can say, or the boiling point, or that when the water transforms into liquid, or when the water transforms into gases or solid, right? It is at this stage, the stage of transformation, right, where it loses its identity, right? So in some sense, I also lost that identity when I was in that zone. It came for maybe 10 or 20 seconds, right? That stage where I was so present, right? Where I literally smiled, right? I cannot imagine. Like it was like surreal. Like it might sound fake to you for because it might sound like, oh, you cannot be in a psychedelic state doing yoga for God's sake. But really, really, I was shocked and because what happened now, when I was transforming into this new stage, I was not an observer, right? I was the transformation that was taking place. When I transformed to that state, then I could observe that, okay, this is the new state that I came into, right? I could compare it with the previous state. I was in some sense very light, very light. I had my right posture. Everything was very slow in some sense. Like I was looking like this, I was looking like this. I was like, damn man, this is incredible. This is incredible. I have to get into this more. I don't know. I thought that I will do it again. I couldn't do it again for many reasons. But that's awesome. That's awesome. So anyway, this flow state that we were talking about, this flow state where you are actually at that edge of, you are actually at that edge of, transformation, right? You want that. You want observer. You are the observation in process, right? You lose that duality that comes with this observation, right? And that's what actually so addicted about it. Maybe that's what addicted about drugs, right? It loses that identity, right? It makes you okay. You feel some sense of life within you, right? When you're in that state, when you're transforming or in some sense making a shift from one state to another. And in some sense, you will see in your life, right? You will feel that in your life. It could happen when you have a breakup. It could happen when you are moving to a new city. It could happen when you are trying to switch your jobs, when you are trying to shift your career. Maybe you're trying to propose your love, or it will happen. It will You will see that in your instances. You will see in that phases, right, between the notes, right, that it's happening, right? You feel that you feel something totally different. You feel totally everything feels more real, right? And you know that's the thing. That the thing with flow state, it happens and it's beautiful, right? And I feel that with conversation. I feel when I'm with my. I feel when I play football. When I feel when I'm studying something really in depth, right? And it's just beautiful. It's the beauty of life, you can say, right? Because you know, you can be, you know, you can be all resentful and all be terrible and all be miserable, and you'll not have the adventure of your life if you do not put yourself in that edge, right? On that, on that place where the fear is there, but at the same time, you know, the f- the person within you that's greater than fear is also within is also there, right? So that you know, so with children, right, you can see that like if you go and tell them the words, right, that's very harder for them to learn. They will not able to learn it. It happens, right? A boredom will, I would not say a boredom, but a challenge which is so greater that it will come when you tell them a very soft pair of words, very weak pair that they have already mastered, a boredom will come. So in some sense, this anxiety, I would not say this proper balance of challenge and boredom is what you really want, right? And we have to figure out where do we stand on that edge. It could be anything for anyone, right? Some people are, higher in that domain or that skill set. Some people are low in that, but it doesn't matter. What matters is like, are you at the edge or not? Are you at that place, right, where it feels alive, where it feels more real, right? That's what I'm striving to be. That's what I'm aiming to be. That's what I'm trying to do with this conversation, with talking to people, with having great conversations, making love, making meeting people. Right, because these things make you alive. These things makes you feel okay. Life has something to it, and there is something really beautiful about it. So why not live it like that? Okay, that was so much of big rant on consciousness and flow state and everything and edge and everything. I don't know how to think of how to edge from here, how to switch from here. Okay, let's see what we can talk about it. It's strange. It's strange. Like right now, I'm being conscious. If you really think about the whole nation, in some sense, has taken to a halt, taken to a point where, in sense, I do not have this uh, thought that's coming out of me, right? This thought that's what the next thing I should do, right? You know, this is what happens with consciousness. Like when you're doing action, like when I'm putting on my screen, there's always this fear, like, what if the thought don't come? What if I could not say really what I would like to believe? Because I like to think that my mind never stops. Right? It just keeps on going. It just keeps on going. It just never stops. So I'm like, okay, let's put on this test, right? Let's see how much I can say, right? It has been, I don't know, 50 minutes since I've been saying things. And I thought about it that I would try to do for 1 hour. I don't know. My basic proposition here is basically to come here and say things that my brain thinks like saying at that moment. That's the thing. There's this spontaneity that comes with it, right? Because if you see now, I thought about it. Should I do it a theme based, right? Maybe I can talk about psychologists, maybe I could talk about ideas, maybe I could talk about some themes, basically, some fields, some topics, right? And I thought, okay, that's a good idea. But like, will that put me in the spot, right? Because I just want to be in that spot, right? I just want myself, my brain to be basically out in the open, where you could see my brain just saying shit that don't mean anything, right? That don't hit a spot, that don't make a nerve, right? I just want that spontaneity on all this content creation, if you can say. I don't like this term basically. I don't know what can I do about it. Maybe you guys could tell me something. If you know an idea, don't say Ajbuli or something, or drink soda. Maybe that would be a good idea. Maybe that's what the people at Tarak Mehta got it all figured out, to drink soda with you guys, right? I'll try to do that. I don't know why I'm stopped. That's the thing. The thing with spontaneity, like it comes, right? You cannot stop that chain of thought. Like you can just go and explore that thought, and maybe you will try to find a different chain of thought to put yourself in. And that's the thing with spontaneity, that's the thing with beauty, that's the thing with randomness, that's the thing with life in some sense. It comes at you very strange manner. Put yourself in something, you don't know what's gonna pop up. Right? It could be anyone, it could be a person, it could be a conversation, it could be a meeting, it could be just an action, or maybe something that you observed, maybe something that you heard, right? There is something beautiful about life. And I don't want the spontaneity of that beauty to end. I want that. I want that. I really feel that I'm really being alive when I'm with friends, or having a life full unscripted conversation. That's why I like Joe Rogan a lot, right? He doesn't have this bullshit. I'm gonna sit with this guy for maybe 1.5 hours and that guy. I also know what I'm gonna. We'll try to fake this out and see. Okay, maybe we can make some money. He's not like this, man. He is like, fuck it, let's rock and roll, baby. We are coming here. We are going, doing it. We are doing the shit live and alive here and here at Texas, baby. And that's the thing I love about Rogan. I don't think so. I've never found a single person who actually have conversation like that, at least on internet. At least, and it's by far the best. Of course, I can say I've not seen everyone, right? I've not seen everyone. जितने भी देखे, like he is the best. He is the best. There's something about it. There's something so real about it. And I'm not saying like Rogan doesn't have shitty points and he doesn't talk shit about. He will, rant about apes and chimpanzees and fucking grizzly bears or some psychedelic shit about mushrooms and psilocybin or anything. But that the spontaneity, he will have that chain of thought for maybe an hour, and the president he will have conversation about drugs and shit, and he will not think, okay, maybe I should stop myself from here and try to think about something else. He's like, fuck it, baby, we are here. Let's talk about anything. It's like having conversation without a camera, right? Because when you're not without camera, you don't want that as any agenda. Though people have that agenda, obviously for many reasons, but it's like meeting a friend, just talking. What's happening, my dude? What's up with the life, right? And that's the thing. That's the thing I love with Rogan. In India, I try to find that. I try to find that. Why I'm coming with that in my first episode, but it's just coming. I tried to find that. I saw that in Prakhar. Saw that in Prakhar when I was in COVID. He was so spontaneous. He was speaking his heart out basically, and I was like, okay, this guy is really nice, right? Of course, I didn't watch many people on Indian community for many reasons. Maybe I'm being ignorant, right? I saw him, I was like, yeah, this guy is the guy. He knows what he's talking about. He's actually a real shit. Started following him, started watching a lot, right? He introduced me to Peters and introduced to me many people. He introduced to me psychology as well. Started exploring lots of things, right? Thanks to him, I think really think he's like a big brother to me that I really want to meet, right? The problem with him, like, at one point, like, the fame caught him as well, right? He started, you know, following the path of conversation that, that Prakhar that I used to was never would want him to do, right? And, I have nothing against him. I totally love him and everything. But, I'm just being honest what I'm saying, right, in Indian community. I try to see that in those guys as well. But, now I don't know how it's happening. But, there's something about Rogan, there's something about like he's really a king of conversation, right? Like it's like having the conversation, like if you just switch off the camera, if the person just switch off the camera, that guy, I don't know, forgetting that guy. Anyway, if the guy actually switch off the camera, the conversation will still go, right? They don't care if the camera is going or not, right? That's the beauty. That's the beauty of a real conversation. That's the beauty of a podcast. And that's how a podcast should go. And that's how I want my conversation, which I will have with many people on this screen, on this camera, on this set that I've set apart here, right? I try to have that spontaneity. I try to put things right. I try to see the real me. I really want to meet that real person more with every day that I've been living, right? Because it's wonderful to see the parts of you that you never thought are there, right? And you thought that you didn't have them, but when they come alive, right? They makes you think, okay, life is actually worth living. It's not really a good solution to hang yourself, right? People have this thought, like they think actually life is meaningless and there's no intrinsic meaning to life, and why not just put ourselves, you know, true detective guy, was that McConaughey? I don't know the name of that guy and that character, but his proposition was also that human consciousness was a big misstep, misstep, and we should just have a one last night, hand in hand, and step to that darkness, right? And I was like, at that, when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But now I think, okay, it's a very Malthusian approach, right? Because, like, okay, I get it. Life is painful, life is suffering, life is full of tragedy and elements. But there's something other to it, right? There's something good about life that's actually worth fighting for, actually worth living, that actually wake up to, right? I'm putting myself here for a very big philosophical test basically or an exam, let's say, for God's sake, that what's the purpose of life, right? What's really the meaning that we actually share with, right? Is it something a pleasurable pursuit of happiness? Is it really something of a moment that we find to look in our day-to-day struggles? What is it really? What is it really about, right? Where do we actually come alive, right? I talked about flow state. That could be a good example. Maybe destiny could also mean something, right? But maybe why we are here, right? Why we are not a speck of dust, right? But obviously, this is a very hard question, right? I have to think a lot on this issue. For me, my purpose of life is to, like, in some sense, I can feel the life, right? I can feel life. It's real. You can say, okay, it could be a matrix, it could be a reality that you don't think that you think it's a reality, but it's not real. But I don't know. This fucking is real. This is the real as it could get. I could touch things, I could smell things, I could see things. It's the most beautiful game. If anybody has made this game, hey man, you did a great job. You did a wonderful job making this game. And I love it, right? There are times when I actually feel that I actually like playing this game, right? And you can say, oh, still, you're still in the matrix and everything, but I don't know, man. This is real as shit, man. This cannot get more real than this. And there are people, there are conversation, there are traditions, there are things that I could taste, there are things that I could see, there are things that I could hear. I feel that there is an existence that we all share with. Everyone shares the same sense of existence, right? And this existence, this ability to experience, right? Sensation experience could be a abstract experience, but this ability to experience is what makes thinking that maybe life is there, right? Because I know I had this conversation with one of this guy at Lodi Reads, right? There's this community where it's actually read books under the same sky, right? They don't have really that much of constraint. They actually just come, people just come, just read under the same sky. They could read any book. They don't need to have any conversation. They just come here, read. There's this collective effort. I talked to that guy. What's the purpose behind this whole movement, let's say, or this whole community? He said, that we just wanted to read. Like, it's not like we want to meet people who wanted to read. We just wanted to read under the same sky. And maybe it's people, right, who are also like reading, right? You can go and meet them, but it's not an obligation. You just come with your things and maybe your water bottle, your book and everything, and just read, right? That was good. And I don't know why I came to this thing. I had this conversation with that guy in that community, and he talked a very good thing about it. It was about life only, right? That if you see now, if you see, we talk that whether are we the only living creatures, right? Can a pole be a living, right? I'm like, okay, maybe that's a good question. Uh, at first, it's like intuitive to think, okay, it's not a living, right? I could touch him, I could just burn it, I could, just throw it away, right? And fair enough, definitely. But then there comes the strange point, right? I also came from that same set of molecules and that same set of atoms, that same set of constituent elements, you can say, right? I also formed from those, like the elements I share with them in some sense are very real, right? They are exact in some sense. The atoms and me are the same in that. It's just that my orientation, right, the space and time of my atoms are differently aligned than the space of time of that pole atoms, right? So where does that uh, rank this whole situation into, right? Is that thing alive as well, or am I alive, or like how this whole paradigm goes? So we had this very cool conversation that got me into thinking. I still has to think a lot about this thing, right? And it's strange, right? It's strange. Like you can have this discussion regarding it uh, any field or any set of analysis. You can say, like you can think about humans, you can think about like animals, you can think about non-living, whole and things, right? And you think started to differentiate and think, okay, what is the major fundamental basis, right? Where we all share. It could be atoms, it could be quantum particles. So I'm not really into that because I don't know why, because of my ignorance or my ability to not understand it. But there's some form of basic element that everyone shared. This carbon, this atom, this whole, you know, the small element that actually make up the reality of the world that we all share. But what actually differentiates us from any non-living, right? What's really something that actually makes us think, okay, we can experience this conscious experience, not them, right? We can see this consciousness, we can feel this consciousness, we can actually live that consciousness, not that entity, right? What the basic differentiator, right? I thought about that and also, you know, had this thought with regard to how animals come into this. So my basically line of thought was something like maybe, we were living with our everyday life, right? You can think of our proto-humans, right? That we were having, you know, like how animals live, right? Having their own sets of day-to-day operations. Maybe they try to hunt, maybe they try to kill someone, maybe they try to store food. I don't know whether they store food or not, but their day-to-day life, right? Basic hierarchical structures, and they also have ethics in them, and they also have some form of principles that are actually making them govern their whole society, right? For that, for the lack of word. Uh, but what differentiate us from them, right? Why humans are in some sense superior, right? I was like, okay, some things, right? Maybe a divine intervention, maybe mushrooms, right? Or maybe some form of Illuminatic touch, which could also be divine intervention, right? So I was like, okay, because what happens now? There's something so cool about us that I thought, of course, I heard it from Peterson only. I don't know how many times I have mentioned him, right? I heard from him, it went like, he said, like, only humans have the capacity to do evil. And that got into thinking. That got me into actually thinking, right? Are we the only species who have full evil, right? We actually can plan to kill someone. We can actually plan to do tragedy. We can actually plan to do harm, right? To fundamentally make cause or inflict pain. It's not like animals do not make that. They do that, but it's like they are so biologically determined by their action that it's just built in. Like they just see things like predator or prey, right? Is it gonna kill me or am I gonna kill that thing? They just see it like that. And I'm talking only about, omnivorous here, but you get my point. But only humans, in some real sense, have this ability to actually do evil, right? We actually can plan, okay, I'm gonna throw this shit around, right? And I was like, okay, so there is this something, there is knowledge about evil, right? Then I thought it got me into thinking Genesis, right? Because Genesis has a really beautiful thing. The Genesis started with Eve taking the fruit, the forbidden fruit, right? The knowledge of good and evil, the fruit of knowledge, right? Basically, and through that, when both Eve and Adams. The story is very funny. I will get into it some other day. The story is very funny. The story is like that when both Eve and Adam had taken their forbidden fruit that they were not supposed to, that God Himself told them to not eat it. But they still went on, why not play with God, and it's God, we can do one thing by ourselves, break the law. They ate it, and now they could see things, right? They actually could see. They they could see them, and then they were naked, obviously, and they could see themselves naked, and they could see the vulnerabilities right in front of them, right? And and the first thing they did was to maybe hide their vulnerabilities, and that was good because that was a good parallel understanding of how humans have this only ability to do evil, right? That we actually have, in some sort of conscious and a greater understanding to cause, inflict, or to inflict pain on others, right? And when they both hit their vulnerable parts, right, they were actually ashamed. They actually knew that what they are afraid of, what they are vulnerable of, and now they know that if something makes them vulnerable, they can make that thing, they can use that thing on other people, right? Because they know what hurt them, so they also know what hurt others, right? And that was like, okay, that's pretty good read of Genesis, right? Because in some sense, like what basically the religion text, the scriptures or the literature is trying to say, right? It's nothing. It's nothing. It's not like a fundamental reading, right? It's just like they are just trying to tell you the representation or the patterns of how human acted, right? They are just the representation of how humans acted, what actions human took, right, throughout life, right? And they just represent, right? And if you see the whole thing with Genesis or also with instance in Buddha, right? Buddha has this story as well where he's born in this wealthy land, right, where his father has every gold in the world, and make sure that Buddha never goes outside to see how much pain is there and outside of the city, outside of the paradise that his father has built, right? But he still goes there because he has that feeling to explore. He has that feeling to see what's really outside. He's actually breaking the matrix, right? He actually goes outside and he sees a very, I don't know, he sees man or some person, maybe a blind or something. And he was like, okay, who is this guy? Right? Who is this guy? The charioteer will say, okay, he's a blind guy and he doesn't have any money, or he has lost his family, or maybe he has disease or something. And Buddha was find it very interesting because he was never, he never saw that. He was like, okay, he saw only what's good only, right? And when he went outside, he saw the bad, right? So the religion literature, or let's say the parallel understanding of the evilness, is actually a really good understanding that what separates humans from animals, right? And you can come at, put me at the spot, and you can come and say, okay, maybe I'm wrong, my understanding of this is wrong. But this is what I've read, this is what I've heard, this is what I've put myself maybe for the past 5 years, right? This is what I've learned. That in some sense we have this ability to do evil, right? And that's what makes us actually different, right? That's what makes us separate, right? That we know the pain, we know the abstraction of pain for some sense, right? We can abstractly think about pain, okay, and with that thinking, with that abstraction, we can think about future realities, right? Because if you might think now, what you're trying to do when you're trying to plan something, you're trying to plan a vision of future where the pain is less, right? Because people don't really want to be happy, right? If people are telling you they want to be happy, Fair enough, man. Happiness is beautiful, but what they are really trying to say, they don't want to be miserable. They don't want to suffer through life. Don't want to this tragedy, to be at them, to be at the top of them all the fucking time. They want to get rid of this, right? If miserable is aside, I'm good. Happiness comes for, of course, who doesn't want that moment of happiness, that blissful thing, that blissful moment where everything is like, okay, I want that, right? But you get practical, right? You get logical, and you think, okay, I cannot have that. Eating, half kg of ice cream, but still you have to face the consequences next day in the hospital. Anyway, the humans have this ability to do evil, and it got me into thinking. I'm still thinking on this idea that we actually have this ability to think about evil, and with this ability comes the ability to think abstraction, to think abstractly, and to think of any future reality that's gonna be within us. That's we can actually think about time now, right? If you really think that, let's say I'm trying to vision my future for, let's say, 10 years, right? It's a big timeline, but take my shoot. What I'm trying to do is like trying to think, okay, if I do these things, I'll, not fall into the pits and maybe have some moment of happiness and, put myself out of tragedy or misery and maybe try to live what I really want to live like, maybe try to do what I really want to do. And, animals don't really have that. You might think, okay, maybe they have some form of understanding, but it's not like they're fully fledged or fully, their consciousness is not like fully allow them to actually think more than that, right? It's like a very conditioned responding. If I would take Skinner into that. Skinner did his good job on animals, and you know, so they have a very biological deterministic pattern that's going on, right? But with humans, we do not. We have something more than that. I might be pushing here, but still, I like to think like that. And we have this ability to think about time. We have this ability to actually think about an abstraction, and that what makes us see future, maybe create future, right? And we can also look back at our past. With that information, we can make sure that the future, that in future, in that past that happened, that was not desirable, that was of misery and tragedy, would not happen in the future. So this is what makes us separate from animals in some real sense, right? And I like to think that, I don't know, I'm wrong. Maybe you guys could tell me where I'm wrong, where I'm not hitting the spot. But anyway, I actually got a very long chain of thought here. I could go for maybe, I don't know how many hours into this thing, but I thought it was good, right? It was good having not even you guys. It's like basically I'm conversing with myself, my this brain basically just putting all these thoughts aside and just saying what he really thinks. And many of the things are stupid. Some things make sense. Some things are like here and there and don't fit in the conversation or don't fit into the context. But who cares? We are here. We are alive. We are doing it, right? Every day, every fucking day. We'll try to, come and talk to many people. We'll try to make sure that a lot of people comes in. Basically, my basic, journey or this motive is to get this started because I really like to talk. Simple as that. Really love it, right? I just want to talk to many people, right? And it's not like I want to have this podcast shit, right? Even without camera, I would have done it. But this camera gives me accessibility to people who take me a lot longer. But now with this ability, with this accessibility, I think I can reach to them faster. I have so many people, Rogan, Peterson, you know, I don't know, lots of people. Right? Missing the names. Anyway, this is the thing. Conversation happened with anyone, but I like the conversation that happened within me. Right, loved being that observer. I love being that observation, as I already told you about that, and I'm gonna do it for some time. I don't know how long we can do that. gonna do it for maybe I don't know how many time, but it has started. It has started. But yeah, I think we're good. It's 1 hour 16 minutes. Okay, bye.